San Diego is home to thousands of species living along the coastline, inland valleys, mountains, and deserts. Over the next half hour, we'll take a closer look at the diverse population of wildlife living in San Diego in this special edition of Earth 8.
This area protects several square miles of habitat of a diversity of different habitats. And what we're seeing is not only are the fish more abundant in the reserves, but they're also larger.
Usually they're just friendly. If I leave them alone, for the most part, they're going to leave me alone.
Now you see it like 3 or 4 times a year.
We're still trying to understand how these events are changing as our oceans change.
Every single day, juvenile white sharks were swimming right by people in the water. White sharks were constantly near those people, even though those people didn't know the sharks were there.
I'm pleasantly surprised because it means it's a healthy ecosystem.
San Diego Wild starts right now. Hello everybody, thanks for watching CBS 8. I'm meteorologist Sean Stiles and I'm here at the Scripps Pier in La Jolla where UC San Diego and the Scripps Institution of Oceanography work together on a daily basis to study and protect marine wildlife. I'm on top of Scripps Pier overlooking the La Jolla Marine Reserve, and joining me now is Jack Elsner. You're a researcher and a PhD student, expert in this field. Tell us how the reserve is working.
So marine protected areas are ocean management tools that are designed to protect and recover ecological communities. So the idea being, if you close off an area to fishing and other extractive activities, you can let the entire ecological community inside the reserve boundaries recover.
So is the La Jolla Marine Reserve working, and how long has it been in place?
So my lab, we run a fisheries monitoring program that does fish surveys inside and outside of San Diego marine protected areas. And what we're seeing through our surveys is not only are the fish more abundant inside the reserves, but they're also larger. So using size and abundance information, we can look at the performance of these reserves through time.
And how big is the reserve? I mean, it looks vast to me, but give the viewers an idea.
So we have several different reserves that run north of the Scripps Pier and wrap all the way around La Jolla. This area protects several square miles of habitat of a diversity of different habitats.
And they've been here since the late 90s, is that right?
Correct.
And the latest one, when was that one put in place?
The most recent one was the South La Jolla State Marine Reserve, and that was put in place in 2012.
So now you hear a lot of pushback that maybe it's taking away fishing. How is the fishing outside of the reserve? Are we seeing any benefit there?
So that is something we're also trying to look at, is spillover of fish from the reserve community to other areas. And one way that we do that is we tag fish inside of the reserve and see where they move. And very often we tag fish in the reserve that are caught outside. So that's one way that we can quantify, are the fish moving to adjacent fish populations?
So anglers are actually out there helping you with your research. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. The program we run, we partner with local fishing communities and sport boats, and we take volunteers out and do surveys inside and outside of the reserves.
And now another thing that you do as a researcher is you work with Shark Lab. Tell us about what's happening in San Diego with that.
Yeah, so my lab at Scripps, we've been collaborating with the Cal State Long Beach Shark Lab, trying to study the aggregation of juvenile white sharks that has been along San Diego beaches for the past couple years.
And so how is that doing? I understand there's a couple nurseries here.
Correct, yes. So San Diego, in the past several years, has become a hot spot for juvenile white shark activity. So we've been doing some tagging and tracking work to try to understand their movements and behavior in San Diego.
And I had an opportunity to talk with Dr. Chris Lowe about this very thing at Shark Lab. From Point Conception to northern Baja California, there are dozens of nurseries for baby white sharks.
The largest that we've had for a while has been up off Santa Barbara, and that's the location where we saw 40 in one day at one beach.
It's always good to stay in a group.
Dr. Chris Lowe is a professor at Cal State Long Beach and has been the director of Shark Lab since 1998. He says San Diego has 2 of the largest nurseries of juvenile white sharks.
Kind of extends from Del Mar to about La Jolla. And then those sharks have been there for about the last 3 years. And what we're noticing is that some of the juveniles return their second and third year, and they're growing about a foot a year.
White sharks became protected in 1994 as their numbers declined severely for two reasons. One, overfishing, and the other, their primary food, seals, was overhunted until the early 1900s.
They didn't receive federal protection until the 70s. But since then, marine mammals have recovered better than we could have imagined. So I think of what we're seeing is basically conservation success working.
The white shark population has lagged behind because the sexual maturity of females can take up to 35 years. Dr. Lowell says there's signs of recovery. With the main food source in plentiful supply, the numbers of the white sharks are rebounding.
This isn't just a matter of people seeing them more. There's actually more to see. So those pilots who have been flying over California for decades said they have never seen more sharks in coastal waters than they have in the last 15.
The coastal waters are where the juvenile live. The adults tend to stay offshore in the islands summer into winter, with the females coming in to give birth in the spring.
So the question is, how important are those habitats to those sharks? How do they choose one of these nursery sites? What are they getting from it? And then, of course, how do they interact with people, and when are they going to leave?
These are just some of the questions Shark Lab is working on. But probably the biggest for us who use the ocean is how they interact with humans.
Patrick did the study found was that every single day, juvenile white sharks were swimming right by people in the water. Whether they were surfers, swimmers, stand-up paddleboarders, white sharks were constantly near those people, even though those people didn't know the sharks were there. And yet, nobody was being bitten.
Lowell says that's because their primary food source is stingray, which are in plentiful supply.
The juvenile white sharks are feeding on things that are on the bottom, and most people that are at the beach are flotsam. They're things floating around the surface.
The funding for Shark Lab research is set to run out in June. I'll put a link on our website with this story for more information. Lowell believes the nurseries show that conservation is working.
I think what's really important that people remember that these animals coming back means we've been doing something right. But we also have to remember that we're guests in their home.
In the story, you may have noticed the scientists dropped the term great white shark and just refer to the shark as white shark. That's because if you say great white, that means there's a lesser white shark, when in fact there's only one species of white sharks, hence the term white shark. Coming up, we take a look at another little critter making a huge impact in San Diego's environment.
But I go outside and look at them every day. I just think it's fun to watch them. If I leave them alone, for the most part, they're going to leave me alone.
Bees have a mixed reputation, but there's a growing number of backyard beekeepers in San Diego. See what all the buzz is about after the break.
When there's like a really powerful blue, it's really cool to see.
Plus, learn all about the phytoplankton behind this blue phenomenon and why they're appearing in San Diego way more than ever before. In what year did researchers start taking a daily water temperature reading off the end of Scripps Pier? Was it A, 1916, B, 1932, or C, 1900? We'll have the answer coming up right after the break. Welcome back. If you chose A, you're absolutely right. It was back in 1916 where scientists started taking daily water samples off the pier to monitor ocean water conditions. And it was back on August 1st, 2018 where they recorded the highest water temperature ever, 78.6 degrees. But the ocean isn't the only place you'll find San Diego's great wildlife. You can find it in your own backyard. In fact, you can even help, which is what a La Mesa beekeeper is doing. Evan Nurani suits up to see what the buzz is all about.
Let's face it, bees have a reputation problem. They're nosy, pesky to some, and may even sting if you're not careful. But they also have been called by some researchers the most important living being on the planet. It's no surprise that around the world, including in San Diego, amateurs have an interest in having some of their own.
There's really very little that you have to do for the bees. You have to watch and make sure that they're not getting too big for their for their locations, because then you might need to add another box to your hive, or that they're not declining in some way so that something's wrong. But otherwise, you don't mess with them that much because you don't want to disturb them. But I go outside and look at them every day. I just think it's fun to watch them.
Lynn and her husband live in La Mesa and have several hives in their backyard, coexisting with them and their dogs for over a year.
We have Italian bees that are calm and gentle, generally speaking, and usually they're just friendly. I think if you mess with them, like if we went over and started shaking the hive, they'd be upset and they would come at us. But if I leave them alone, for the most part, they're going to leave me alone.
Lynn saw our coverage of the bee population getting help from the recent heavy rain in the winter and invited me out to see for myself what backyard beekeeping was like.
We are about to suit up and go into the hive. Lynn, what are the basics to putting on the bee suit? This is my first time.
Yeah, it's the most important thing you're going to do today is put this on correctly.
And while it may look like a fun time, and it was, there's still a lot to know when it comes to keeping bees yourself at home. That's where Joseph comes in, Lynn's mentor, who made a business out of beekeeping.
Doing some research, I got hooked up with a group called Hives to Heroes. It's just a nonprofit trying to get people, disabled veterans, into beekeeping, and then thought, you know what, this sounds like something I want to do.
While amateur beekeeping's effects on their overall population have yet to be published, there's a ton of research to support these little creatures being responsible for pollinating about 80% of all flowering plants, according to the Department of Agriculture.
The symbiotic relationship between the bees and the trees. I have over 40 varieties of fruit trees in my little front yard. And I get so much more fruit off of my trees because I have the bees right there on scene.
There's also the gooey benefits of the fresh honey made by those worker bees.
Until I tasted the honey that my bees made, I was like, yeah, you can't have any. Initially, I told them you could have the honey, and then I was like, no, this is my honey.
The city of San Diego does not require a permit to keep bees in your backyard, but you are required to register your hive and follow regulations on where and how many you can have. You're also asked to complete a course on it. But the rewards, well, Lynn and Joseph say there are many.
I don't know what it is, but there's something, working with the bees. When you're calm and collected and you're moving through a hive with a purpose, they're calm, they're mellow, they're not doing anything. And then if you're not, you drop a frame or you bang a frame or you're clutching around, things go south really quick, which kind of reminds me of the old military days.
In La Mesa, Evan Irani, CBS 8.
That is some great information, Evan, about beekeeping. If you'd like to be a backyard beekeeper, you can head on over to the San Diego County's website and take their online course. Now, back here in La Jolla, keeping one of their most famous animal species healthy is getting a lot harder. 1 in 4 sea lions contract cancer in California. It's called urogenitalia carcinoma. Researchers have discovered the cancer is caused by a sea lion version of genital herpes. The cancer is triggered by a man-made hazard, DDT pesticide barrels, that polluters dumped in the ocean in the 70s, right near hotspots for sea lion births.
It's like the last place you want a bunch of contaminants to be is in your nursery.
This disease is similar to cervical cancer in humans, so finding a cure or treatment for sick sea lions could help human cancer research too.
When animals come in sick with cancer or other diseases, again, that gives us an idea of what is affecting our oceans and what can we be exposed to as well.
San Diego seals and sea lions are loved by tourists and locals alike. But there's another species that's attracting people down to the coastline to watch the bioluminescence in the waves. It's created by microscopic organisms that live in the ocean. CBS 8's Neda Iranpour takes a deep dive into the latest research.
If you've searched San Diego's beaches or anything UC San Diego, then you may have come across the work of Eric Jepson, the campus photographer. He's often drawn to the coastline, capturing its beauty with his lens. And of all the photos he's taken in his lifetime, bioluminescence are among his favorite.
When there's like a really powerful blue, yeah, you can just like go to the shore and just like kick the water and it lights up blue. It's really cool to see.
Especially proud of this image, a wave lighting up as a surfer glides through phytoplankton.
My favorite photo actually from here at Scripps is during the bioluminescence. Just watching the surfers, it's like, it gotta be very difficult to catch a wave at night.
But Eric says it's not as difficult to catch the bioluminescence as it used to be.
Before, like a decade ago, you'd see the bioluminescence like once every 3 years or like 2 years, but now you see it like 3 or 4 times a year. So the frequency of it is definitely increased.
The reason behind the more frequent findings is something researchers at Scripps Institution of Oceanography are looking into.
We're still trying to understand how these events are changing as our oceans change.
Drew Lucas is a researcher at Scripps and with the Department of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering. And in his team's research, they discovered some fascinating behavior by the glow-causing phytoplankton. The specific plankton is called L. polyedra, and it's smaller than a human hair, but faster than a mako shark, going 10 body lengths per second and doing so for 18 or more hours.
The analogy I might use is sort of the Michael Phelps of the phytoplankton world.
Even faster. It's
even faster than Michael Phelps, because even Michael Phelps can't keep up with a mako shark.
They're fast and they swim up and down from the surface of the ocean to the sea floor.
From the surface down to deeper than 100 feet over the course of an afternoon.
Using this tool called the wire walker, Drew and his team can follow the L. polyedra. They discovered during the day they photosynthesize by being close to the ocean's surface, gaining energy from the sun. That's when you may see that rusty reddish color, a sign of a big bloom. And after sunset, many of them take deep dives in search of nutrients. But not all go down at once, which is why you see the blue glow, appearing when the L. polyedra get agitated. All of this new research is based off the 2020 bloom, one of the strongest ever recorded at Scripps. Prime conditions then included warmer temperatures and calm conditions.
Once they get cooking, they can dominate.
So dominant, they become the only plankton players. The bloom of 2020 lasted more than 2 months, but when they died off, so can fish and other marine life. As the algae decomposes, it takes away oxygen from the water, essentially suffocating life below it.
It really can change our coastal ecosystem. And so our ability to measure that and to monitor that really projects onto our ability to protect what is an incredibly valuable resource for us here in San Diego.
That's why Drew is constantly trying to create new measuring tools, spending months at sea to learn more about the ocean.
And we know more about the surface of Mars than we do about the bottom of the ocean. And that is really evocative of the fact that the ocean is still, it's vast, it's very deep, it's a very difficult environment to get measurements from. And so, we're still really in the exploration phase, which is very exciting.
Exploration is something Eric also appreciates, which is why you'll likely see him on campus or at the beach, snapping photo after photo using his keen eye to show that science is beautiful.
Wow, Netta, those images and video were absolutely stunning. If you've never seen the bioluminescence in the waves, next time you hear about it, come down and check it out. You'll be blown away. Coming up, we take a look at a bird that is making a comeback at Lake Hodges. What does that mean and how it shows the resilience of San Diego's wildlife?
They're great, beautiful little chicks. And I don't use this word often, but they're cute, really cute.
Learn all about the return of the grebes and what that means for Lake Hodges. How many gallons of seawater are filtered and pumped through Scripps Pier daily? A, 150,000, B, 1.8 million, or C, 2.5 million? Coming up right after the break, I'll have the answer. Welcome back. If you chose B, you're correct. They pump 1.8 million gallons of water every day here off the pier up to the aquarium or for research here at Scripps. Now let's take a look at rattlesnakes. They're a vital part of the food chain here in San Diego and around the world. However, as you can imagine, doing research on snakes, it's a little bit difficult, but new technology is making that easier. San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance and San Diego State University researchers are using glue and thread to attach these trackers. They're non-invasive. This allows them to track 75 data points across the county.
The goal of the project eventually is to build this really comprehensive fine-scale behavioral data set from this very important species so we can understand kind of its ecological relationship to other animals in the environment and their relationship to each other.
San Diego is becoming more urban. These trackers will help track snake habitat loss and help researchers protect the species. Next up, we stay inland and we learn about a species that's making an incredible comeback. I met with nature photographer Brian Cadwell at Lake Hodges, and he's very inspired about a bird that's nesting again at the lake despite the low water levels that have plagued the shoreline.
I'm pleasantly surprised because I didn't think we'd see this for many years, if at all.
Brian Caldwell has been on Lake Hodges for over 30 years.
Oh, there's one of the chick right there.
Oh, on that one right there?
Right there. Yeah. The one right, yeah.
The past 10 as a nature photographer with Lake Hodges Photo Tours.
The fact that we have grebes nesting means the population's bouncing back. It's a great thing.
The reason he's surprised is because there was a dramatic drop in the water level on the lake several years ago. That destroyed most of the grebes' nesting areas. Now that the lake has stabilized, he says the nests have returned.
At the peak this season, when I first counted the nests, I saw approximately, I couldn't get right inside to see, but it was approximately 80 nests. And of those 80 nests, I'm thinking maybe about 25% of them were able to make it all the way through.
Grebes are very distinctive in their look and their mating rituals, and that's what attracts birders from around the world.
Well, grebes are just fantastically photogenic birds. They have these beautiful red eyes that are, oh, they just stand out, and they have this really intricate courtship routine that most people will love to see. It's very unique. The birds will run across the surface of the water.
That continues with the weed dance, where the pair dive to the bottom and come to the surface and dance with the weeds. But really, the best part is when the chicks arrive.
And they have great, beautiful little chicks. And I don't use this word often, but they're cute, really cute, because they sit in the back of the parents for the first 3-4 weeks.
So from the devastating past, Brian and those that care for Lake Hodges are very excited.
We're really happy. I mean, I'm happy, and I've posted a few things on social media, and I'm getting a lot of feedback that people are stoked that it's happening, for sure.
Which shows, if given a chance, Mother Nature will find a way.
It's just great to see it, because it means it's a healthy ecosystem. It's bouncing back. It's doing what it's meant to do. It's being resilient, and it's happening. You know, it's great.
Lake Hodges is open Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and if you'd like more information about Lake Hodges photo tours, there will be a link on the web story. Over the last half hour, we've shown you how diverse San Diego's wildlife is. Everything from sharks to bees and everything in between. They call San Diego home. If you'd like to learn more about how diverse San Diego's wildlife is, head on over to CBS8.com to watch more Earth 8 stories. I'm Sean Stiles. Thanks for watching this Earth 8 special, San Diego Wild.